There's a point you reach, if you spend enough time with All in the Family, where awards start to feel like a very small way of measuring something that is operating on a much larger scale. And that point usually arrives quietly, somewhere in the middle of a scene where nothing flashy is happening, where no obvious performance moment is being delivered, and yet you can feel the weight of what is doing, holding a character together with such control, such consistency, that it stops feeling like acting altogether and starts feeling like presence. And when you think about the fact that he won 4 Emmys for that performance, it sounds impressive until you really sit with the work itself. Because 4 in this context doesn't feel like a total. It feels like a gesture, a recognition of something that couldn't fully be captured in numbers. Because what created with Archie Bunker wasn't just a standout performance in a few episodes. It was a sustained achievement, a long, uninterrupted stretch of precision, where every scene built on the last, where every reaction carried memory, where nothing felt isolated or disposable. And that kind of consistency, that's harder than any single award-winning moment. Because it requires discipline. It requires restraint. It requires an understanding of the character that goes beyond lines or situations and into something deeper, something structural. Now think about what he was being asked to do. To play a character who, on the surface, could easily be reduced to a single note, a single defining trait, someone you either reject or laugh at without thinking too much about it. And instead, he builds something layered, something contradictory, something that never fully settles into one interpretation. And he does it without asking for sympathy, without signaling when you should feel something different, without guiding the audience toward a specific conclusion. He just allows the character to exist. And that existence, that's what carries the performance. Because Archie isn't presented as a series of moments. He's presented as a continuous presence. A person who moves through conversations, through conflicts, through relationships, in a way that feels connected, grounded, real. And that kind of continuity is incredibly difficult to maintain, especially in a sitcom format where repetition is part of the structure, where characters often become predictable because predictability makes them easy to write, easy to recognize, easy to revisit. But avoids that. He keeps Archie consistent without making him static. And there's a difference there that's easy to miss if you're not paying attention. Because consistency doesn't mean sameness. It means coherence. It means that every reaction feels like it comes from the same person, even when the situation changes. It means that the character carries his past into every new moment, even if it's not explicitly referenced. And you can feel that in the way he performs, in the way he listens, in the way he pauses before responding, in the way his tone shifts depending on who he's speaking to. Those shifts aren't dramatic. They're subtle, but they matter because they reveal that the character isn't reacting in isolation. He's reacting within relationships. With Mike, there's a certain edge, a kind of intellectual tension that builds through rhythm, through timing, through the way each exchange pushes a little further than the last. With Gloria, there's something more personal, more emotional, because now the conflict isn't just about ideas, it's about connection, about how disagreement affects the bond between them. And with everything changes, because with introduces something quieter, a softness that doesn't erase the character's rigidity, but sits alongside it. A vulnerability that appears briefly and then recedes, leaving just enough of a trace that you remember it later. And those moments, they're not highlighted. They're not turned into big emotional beats. They're allowed to pass naturally. And that's what makes them powerful. Because they feel real. They feel like something that wasn't performed for effect, but emerged from the character itself. And when you start to notice those details, when you begin to see how carefully everything is being controlled, the performance expands. It becomes something you can't fully capture in a single episode or even a single season. It becomes cumulative, something that builds over time. And that's where the idea of awards starts to feel limited. Because awards tend to recognize moments, episodes, specific instances where something stands out. But what is doing isn't about standing out. It's about holding everything together, about maintaining a level of truth across hundreds of scenes, across years of storytelling, without losing the integrity of the character. And that kind of work, it doesn't peak in one place. It sustains itself. It evolves slowly, almost invisibly. And you can't measure that with a count. You can only experience it. Now place all of this within the environment of the show itself, that living room where so much of the action takes place, where conversations carry more weight than plot, where arguments replace traditional punchlines, and the importance of performance becomes even clearer. Because in that space, there's nowhere to hide. No elaborate setups. No distractions. Just people talking, reacting, responding in real time. And if the central performance isn't strong enough, grounded enough, everything falls apart. But here it holds, because gives the show a center, a presence that anchors every scene, that allows the other characters to push against something real, something solid. And that solidity, it's what makes the tension work. It's what makes the humor land. It's what makes the discomfort feel intentional rather than accidental. And that's another layer to consider, the way the performance supports the tone of the show itself. Because this isn't comedy built on easy laughter. It's built on tension, on moments that feel slightly uncomfortable, on conversations that don't resolve cleanly. And understands that. He doesn't rush those moments. Oh, he lets them sit. He allows the discomfort to exist without trying to soften it immediately. And in doing so, he creates space. A space for the audience to react, or to think, to process, and that's not something every performance can do. It requires confidence. It requires trust in the material, in the audience, in the character. And has that trust. He never overplays, never pushes too hard, never tries to force a reaction. He simply stays within the character, allowing everything to unfold naturally. And that restraint, that control, it's what makes the performance feel effortless, even though you know it is. Because effortlessness at this level is always constructed. It's always the result of careful choices, of deep understanding, of a willingness to let the work speak for itself. And that's why, when you look back at those 4 Emmys, they don't feel like a complete measure. They feel like a recognition of something that couldn't fully be contained. Because what achieved wasn't just excellence in a role. It was a redefinition of what a sitcom performance could be. It showed that comedy could carry weight, that characters could be both consistent and complex, that a performance could feel lived in rather than performed. And once that standard is set, once you've seen what's possible at that level, it changes how you watch everything that comes after. It raises the expectation. It deepens the experience. And it leaves a kind of imprint that doesn't fade. So when you say that 4 Emmys were not enough, it's not about wanting a higher number. It's about recognizing that some performances exist beyond counting, beyond ranking, beyond simple recognition. They become part of the standard itself, part of the way we understand what great acting looks like. Anne's work as Archie Bunker sits firmly in that space. Not just awarded, but remembered. Not just recognized, but felt. And that's something no number can fully capture.